stark images and wild sounds. A place to rediscover a world far from stress and commotion of the city. A place to renew our ancestral ties with nature. Algonquin, a place to explore the infinite beauty, the infinite complexity of a world for which history began long, long before humans. A billion years ago, the rocks that form Algonquin's backbone had their birth in a primordial sea, thrust up, warped, and molded into great mountains by colliding continents. These peaks were gradually worn down over countless ages by wind, water, and ice. Glaciers, slow, grinding glaciers, submerged Algonquin under a crushing sea of ice many times over the past 2.5 million years. The last glacier retreated just 11,000 years ago, leaving behind a thin covering of boulders, sand, and gravel over a dome of rocky hills. But out of the barrens sprang life. Within 8 centuries, Algonquin's great forests were established. A towering, colossal, ancient pine came to dominate the landscape. The seasons came and went. Natural cycles completed themselves unimpeded, relentless, sometimes violent, but always a part of the natural order. Lightning-induced fires, insect outbreaks, and destructive winds were not good or bad. They were integral parts of the wilderness system, a constantly changing mosaic of young and old forests, to which each plant and animal species adapted or perished. 5,000 years ago, humans became a part of the natural order in Algonquin. Then, and for many years, the harsh land could support but a few of us. Fishing, hunting, and picking berries in summer, we lived in family groups, camped in many of the same places we use today, and had to move often to find enough food. Sometimes, like many other animals, we didn't succeed. Like all living things in the primeval wilderness, we were a part of that order, its beneficiaries and victims in a continuous system of creation and destruction, of birth and death. Then the system was changed. Propelled by the booming British and later American economies, pioneer loggers pushed into Canada's great forest of prime pine. Year after year, the lonely winter woods rang to the sounds of their axes as they felled and squared its great pine. Year after year, they drove the timber down the wild rivers to the Ottawa and St. Lawrence. They reached Algonquin in the 1830s. 700 years, they said. We have enough big pine to last 700 years. In 70 years, they wondered where it had all gone. Uncontrolled fires ignited in pine slash left by the loggers ravaged large areas. It had taken nature 1 billion years and 4 ice ages to model the face of Algonquin. It had taken her many thousands of years to fill the park contours with the great pine forests the loggers found. It took technological man a single lifetime to drastically modify that environment. The logger's axe had lopped off the old forest, and the new environment was different. Young forests encouraged different animals. The white-tailed deer, for example, reached unprecedented numbers. Even bigger changes were on the way. Homesteaders, encouraged by government grants and colonization roads, were opening up 19th century Ontario at a tremendous pace, pushing nearer and nearer to Algonquin. Then came a growing realization in the minds of many people that Ontario's natural resources, Forests, water, and wildlife must be protected from indiscriminate exploitation. Thus, the Algonquin Park Act was passed by the Ontario Legislature in 1893. The new park would serve as a wildlife sanctuary and, by excluding agriculture, protect the headwaters of the 5 major rivers which flow from the park. Algonquin was not intended to preserve intact the old natural order that was already a thing of the past. The years following the park's creation saw only a few adventurous visitors coming by train, and the chief occupation of the park rangers was the pursuit of poachers. But the fame of Algonquin soon spread, and hotels and cottages sprang up on leased land. Spurred on by the bold images of Tom Thomson, more and more people got to know the park firsthand. Highway 60 was opened in 1936, and the number of visitors jumped spectacularly. A generation of Ontario residents got their first touch of nature by feeding roadside deer in this wilderness park, not realizing, incidentally, that the deer had become so abundant only because man had altered the original ecosystem. Today, Algonquin is more accessible and more heavily used. Over 1 million people visit the park each year. And with these large numbers comes an increasingly large responsibility. Long gone are the days when we humans were just rare animals, supported and limited by the Algonquin wilderness in which we lived. Today, in less than 2 centuries, we have transformed that wilderness, and we all have different images of the park, different ideas about how the park's resources should be used. Conflicts are inevitable. But in the multiple-use concept which the Ontario government has selected for Algonquin, many traditional uses are deemed legitimate. To provide a balanced approach to the future management of Algonquin Park, a park management plan has been developed that addresses major uses. In all Ontario parks, protecting ecological integrity, or nature's balance, is a priority. Dividing the park into zones helps prioritize areas for acceptable uses. Utilization zones, where logging takes place. Development zone, the Highway 60 corridor. Wilderness and natural environment zones, where we interfere as little as possible with the natural order. Historic and nature reserve zones, which protect specific historical and biological values of great significance. But for you, personally, there is a much more fundamental division. There are really 2 Algonquin parks. First and foremost is the vast park backcountry, a huge wild country crisscrossed by nearly 2,000 kilometers of canoe routes. Here, for a while, you can forget the strident, raucous images of the city landscape. Here, you can immerse yourself in the tonic of a more natural world. Here, you can lose yourself in a precious fragment of our Canadian heritage. This, the park backcountry, is Algonquin's most valuable resource. The other Algonquin is the Parkway corridor. Here, organized campgrounds permit you to have a less strenuous vacation, but one which gives you a taste of Algonquin all the same. Even though the corridor is relatively developed, it is still quite different from what you see back home. And so, a program has been established to help you understand, appreciate, and enjoy the park's special qualities. Evening slide programs at the outdoor theater, books and maps, 18 interpretive walking trails, and the Algonquin Logging Museum are all parts of that program. And then there is the Visitor Center itself, opened in 1993 to celebrate Algonquin's first 100 years as a park, and through its exhibits, introduce you, our visitors, to Algonquin's magnificent natural and human heritage. But of course, the real Algonquin environment is to be found not inside, but beyond the walls of this building. In the quiet beauty of 1,000 streams, lakes, and ponds, the moldering remains of forgotten farms and logging camps, in the subtle blend of northern and southern forests, in the sharing of a moment in the life of a wild animal, in the opportunity to travel for days on end by trail, paddle, and portage. In all its grandeur, Algonquin is yours. From its most subtle intimacy to its breathtaking sweeps of wild and beautiful landscape. Algonquin is yours to discover, yours to treasure, yours to explore.